Hi, thank you, Emil. Indeed, a very exciting roadmap that we have, and very looking forward to getting those features out to our customers. Thank you, everyone, for taking your time to join us today. Today, I'm going to be giving a introduction to sites. So essentially, I'm going to talk about considerations to keep in mind when you're deciding whether you want one site or multi-sites. I'm going to walk through an example of a company that has gone with the multi-site approach. And I will go over some tips in terms of when you might want to go single site versus multi-site. So we all know that structuring, navigation, and theming significantly improve the user experience for your users that are looking at content that is coming from Confluence and Jira. Sites, though, they add another dimension to your content strategy because with Refined, you can build as many sites as you want to show the content from your Atlassian instance. So for those of you that are directly responsible for building sites, or you may be involved in the process or the decision making, you have probably asked the question, how many sites do we need? And that's an interesting question that I think a lot of us ask even at Refine when we start with our sites. But before we do that, I want to show you some interesting data. So 25 sites, that is the highest number of sites that any one of our customers have. And as a comparison, over on server, we have around the same number of sites as well for the highest number of sites. A third of our customers actually have 2+ sites. So how many sites do you need? I wish I could give you a magic number or a magic solution, but unfortunately I can't. Because what I have to say is that it depends. There's multiple factors that come into play here. So what's relevant for one small business, for example, may not be relevant for the next. And the same goes for enterprise businesses. So it's going to depend on audience. So you may have an executive team, the C-suite, that may have a separate site. You may have HR teams or internal or external customers that may need separate sites. The purpose is really important to think about. So do you have a site that caters to external customers in terms of support? Or do you have, for example, more product documentation that could live on another site as well? Your organization and the size of it is also a factor here. You may have divisions. You may have, for example, a division here in Sweden and a division in the US, and then you may want to separate the sites for the employees there. Whether you're a small business or bigger business, that can also impact into whether or not you want, for example, a one-stop shop for your site where everyone is going to the same location. And finally, geography matters as well, and languages. Essentially, multiple geographies mean you may need separate sites. So here is a fictional example of a company called Cirrus. They have 700 employees, and they're looking to grow to 1,000 by 2025. They are a life documentation product and service. And I dreamed that up in my head. I don't even know if this is a good product market fit, but for all intents and purposes, I think it should be clear here. They're also headquartered in Sweden with sales and marketing in the US. So here they have a site called the Cirrus Hub where their intranet lives. So this is where all their 700 employees go to for their information. They have team pages, they have documentation for their processes. They also have an HR section and an internal help desk where employees can file tickets. They all have also chosen to show news of what's happening in the company. And they also have a module here where new hires can only see, where training documents are found. There's also nav icons that are surfaced to show the most relevant and most accessed information, for example. They've also chosen the main page to advertise their upcoming event in Vegas. As I mentioned before, they also have a sales and marketing team in the US, and they've chosen to have their separate site because the purpose for this audience is very specific to them. All the marketing materials, sales materials is mostly relevant for their team. So here they've chosen to expose common resources such as proposal documentation, training material, sales material, and they've also chosen to essentially have news as well on this site for their team. As a product company, they also have public support and documentation. So here, customers can go in, learn how to use the product, look for documentation, but they can also file a ticket, all on support.cirrus.com using a custom domain. So with Cirrus, they have 3 sites, and next year they're looking to put a 4th when they grow, because they're going to spawn up a new division. So hopefully what I was able to show is that with Refined, you can build purposeful sites for your audiences. So what are some motivations for having just one site? You may want to have this if you intend to have one main landing spot for your content, or if you have a very clear purpose for your audiences. So for example, if you just want to show documentation to your entire company, then that can exist on one site. And one site is also useful, the one-site approach, when you want to tie multiple use cases in one. So for example, you can have your intranet, you can have your documentation, you can have internal support, all on one Refined site. And to do that, of course, you need both Refined for Confluence Cloud and Refined for Jira Cloud, as they're pulling information from both of those products. And some motivations for multi-site are that you may want to separate your audiences that have unique needs. So as I alluded to before, you may have internal customers versus external. And it can also be due to geography, languages, and your organizational structure. You may also want to spawn multi-sites for the purpose of having special purpose sites. So these are temporary sites that are spawned for special purposes. And my colleague Raj is going to get more into this in a bit. So to end here, what I want to really emphasize is that there's no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to the number of sites. It's really going to depend on your organization and the factors that are important to you. Now, when I say there's no one-size-fits-all approach, that's also very true because it can also come down to the individual who's building the sites, who may have a very strong philosophical or stylistic preference. So the tips that I've highlighted are only factors to consider. And at the end of the day, if you need more sort of consultation or more guidance and you're stuck regarding how many sites I should have, you can always contact us at support.refined.com. We're more than happy to help. We also have some resources on the blog that talk about content strategy. They also go into some pointers about the number of sites. And finally, as Emil alluded to, the design beta program is now available for sign up. And within that, there's also an opportunity to get consultations about site structuring, which is related to the number of sites. So I'll end here, and hopefully you have a better understanding, or at least some more information about what factors to consider when you are doing your site strategy. With that said, I'm going to hand it off to my wonderful colleague, Maria. Thank you very much.